Welcome back to the history of Third Ward. I'm Andrea Brown, and I'm here with Mr. Eugene Floyd.
Yeah.
Mr. Floyd, thank you so much for being here with us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your life in Third Ward. I know that you are a Third Ward native.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about what you can remember as far back as you can remember.
I would say around 1942. I was born in 35.
Okay.
And my grandmother's home was in the 2800 block of Dowling. In later years, that home site became Tyler Barber College, which most people who lived in Third Ward knew. I traversed the area from Gray to Holman.
Okay.
During that time, back in the 40s, 30s and 40s, blacks didn't travel past Alabama and Dowling. Alabama and Dowling. In fact, I do believe 1948, there were two brothers, the Caesar brothers. They were cattlemen, and they bought a home over in, across Alabama somewhere. I don't remember where it was. And the house was firebombed.
Okay.
But Dowling Street from Gray and Dowling on back to Holman, that was our area, the movie theaters. And sometimes around, I do believe that was Calhoun. That was a company, a steel company, Markle Steel. They had an area there. The best football games in Third Ward were played on that ground every Sunday.
Okay.
And it was integrated. The black boys, they were colored back in those days.
Yes.
Played against a lot of white boys every Sunday. No incidents.
Really?
No incidents. It was just a different world back then. But Dowling Street had everything for me. And that was from the Elder Barter Ballroom, which was on, and still is, on Elgin and Dowling.
Yes.
And everybody went there. There was a movie, Harlem Nights, I believe it is, depicting the nightlife in the black community. That's the way the El Dorado was.
Really?
Of course, they didn't wear tuxedos every day, but from
Okay.
time to time. I was a boy, and I would stand right there in Emancipation Park, and I would watch those guys. Oh, they'd be dressed, and the ladies dressed. And it was so, well, it's odd now because people walked hand in hand, they held hands, they interlocking their arms. And even on the dance floor, dancing at the El Dorado or any place, men wore hats and caps back in those days.
Yes.
And when they were dancing, the ladies would hold the hat and the caps while they danced. It was good times, fabulous days. Emancipation Park, the swimming pool. Everybody went to the swimming pool to either swim or watch the guys swim. When the pool would close during the summer, sometime around maybe August, whenever, they'd have a big water carnival, sports, races and what have you. One of the richest men in Houston, call him Silver Dollar something, Jim somebody, but he would come and he'd have a pocket full of silver dollars. That was his trademark.
Okay.
And he would throw those silver dollars into the pool. The guys would dive in just like pearl divers and dive down and get that money.
Okay.
Everybody came to the Emancipation Park to either swim or play ball. We didn't play baseball until, I do believe, they put baseball in the black schools 1949.
Okay.
But prior to, we played softball. And they had teams all over the city. Club Matinee had the best teams, Hilscher's Home Supply, the Senate Grill. It was just marvelous to see these guys, grown men. They weren't allowed to play baseball, but we played softball, football. I started hitting golf balls in Emancipation Park.
Okay.
The attendant there, Mr. Scott, they lived in the Emancipation Park. They had a house on the corner of Hutchins and 2M where the attendant lived and, took care of the park.
Yes.
And later on, Mr. Roy became the attendant. And they would run us off from hitting golf balls because the golf balls would mess up the lawnmowers.
Of course.
Also, that house was sort of like salvation to a great many of us who were very poor. During the war, you'd get your staples from that house. The attendant there, Mr. Roy, they would have food, sort of like food stamps.
Okay.
Everything was rationed: sugar, butter, milk. You'd go and get a ticket, your stamps, and you could take the stamps to the grocery store in order to get whatever product that ticket allowed you to get back in. And that was from, during the war years, what was that, from 41 to, I think, 40, 45, 46.
Okay.
But again, Dowling Street, everybody walked Dowling Street because nobody had a car. We rode the bus. You walked or you rode your bicycle.
Okay.
It was also funny in a sense, if you can call it that. Funerals, I'm not exaggerating when I say there would be 7 and 8 people in a car going to funerals because only a few people had cars. Again, musicians, athletes, some of the greatest athletes I've ever known walked Dowling Street, the Emancipation Park, and through 3rd Ward.
It sounds like Dowling Street was a major thoroughfare.
It was.
And we're going to talk more about this when we come back. We're going to take a brief break, and we'll be back to discuss some more.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Take a little break, 30 seconds.
30
to a
seconds.
minute.
Okay. Are we off air?
Temporarily.
Temporarily.
I think when I get back, I want to talk to you about Yates
Okay.
and life after Yates.
That was life after Yates. I thought life was over when I left Yates. I thought I was dead. Really? No more football? No more baseball?
Well, welcome back. I am here with Mr. Eugene Floyd, and before the break, we talked a great deal about Emancipation Park and Dowling Street. But one of the things I want to talk to you about now is Yates High School. Tell me about your experience at Yates, because I know that you started Yates a bit earlier than some of the students that currently go here now.
I started Yates in September 1947 as a 12-year-old, 7th grade. There were no junior highs for, what were we, blacks, Negroes, colored, whatever. Yates started at 7th grade and went through the 12th. I believe they put the 12th grade in the Houston schools. I do believe in 46. But prior to that, all of them went to the 11th grade. That was a proud day for me. Going to high school, going to Jack Yates. My mother attended Yates, and she told me the story about the lion. When they unveiled that lion the first day, there was 700 people surrounding the school, just everywhere down Elgin, and people went wild over that lion. But again, I started Yates in '47, and I finished Yates in '53.
Okay.
During which time my graduating class was only 152 students, I do believe, maybe 153. Most of us came from Douglas, and the other school was Blackshear.
Okay.
And Dotson. Dotson was over close to the bottom of Third Ward, around in Calhoun. But it was an experience, just growing from 12 years old and walking down the halls with the big boys whom I'd watch play football and, saw playing basketball in the park and what have you. It was a wonderful experience.
What kind of activities did you participate in while you were at Yates?
I played on the baseball team for 4 years,
Okay.
football 2 years. I didn't dare go out for basketball because I had skinny legs and I didn't want the guys to laugh at me. But we did everything after school, and even some things that weren't too nice. Everybody talks about the good stuff. The bad stuff, that was a group of us. We'd break into school at night, into the cafeteria, and get ice cream. No, really. It was just, it wasn't criminal, it was just something to do. And they were all the football players or the baseball players when we finished practice. Again, it wasn't criminal, it was just fun. It was just fun. But one thing I can say in honesty about the guys at Yates, we had so much respect for the girls. Very few girls had to drop out of school back in those days because of pregnancy and stuff like that. We didn't fight the girls. We didn't, the term they used now, bogart. We loved our girls. And, we took care of them. In fact, as I was saying earlier, I was at football practice one day. That was in September 1952. And this little girl came across the park. We practiced in the park because the school was being repaired. And I fell in love. Her name was LaWanda Caraway. Her uncles had Caraway Cleaners on Dowling and Stewart. And somehow I got her phone number and I called her. That was November 11th, 1952, and we're still together.
Wow.
And that, came out of the Emancipation Park.
That's such a beautiful story that you all were able to meet in Emancipation Park, and you all have maintained a loving relationship since then. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, that's, in fact, several guys that were in my graduating class. One of my all-time, I loved him to this day, his name is Northerly Eugene. I was very poor. My dad died in December of 1939. Buried him January the 1st, 1940. He died just before Social Security payments became available.
Oh, wow.
And my mother she was pregnant and had 3 children, and we didn't get a dime. So in school, I was on free lunch, but I was ashamed to get in to show my past because I had too much pride. But this guy, Northerly Eugene, would share his lunch with me, a sandwich, a bacon and mayonnaise sandwich. But I didn't know I was poor. I used to get from the good fellows a ticket to go and get clothes. And I was ashamed to get them because I just, I didn't want people to know how poor I was.
Right.
But I never wanted for anything within my neighborhood, which was still intact. The guys and girls we call ourselves the Dennis Street Gang.
Okay.
Dennis and Bastrop. we still have get-togethers from time to time, and that's from 1942, 43.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yes, we get together and reminisce, and I can truly say that my time in my neighborhood and at Yates, no fights, maybe one or two fights. No disruptions at school. We never had to get out of school because of any calamity or anything like that. I guess we gravitated to love because that's all we saw in our neighborhoods. There weren't many brawls. There were no, people killing each other or shooting.
Yeah.
There were a few, every now and then somebody did something stupid. I think a man was killed on Dowling in front of the Park Theater at 2800 block of Dowling. And that's the only time I ever heard of anybody getting killed.
Wow.
But again, Yates was just the place to be.
Wow, that sounds amazing, and it's such a lovely experience to hear that you were able to establish relationships, and that Third Ward has played such a beautiful backdrop to a life that seems very rich to me.
Well, it was. I think the turning point. Again, I was wayward. I'd cut class. I'd cut school. Never anything criminal. But around 1947, I started caddying, and I met some guys, the Spivey brothers. It turned my life around, meeting these guys. I stopped messing around with some of my old gang.
Okay.
And I started, caddying, playing baseball, and another guy's family, never forget them, George Simon, the Simon boys. We all caddied together and played baseball. It was just a new adventure. And I got away from that other element. All at Yates. And some days I'd stay at Yates from, 8 o'clock until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, playing ball, basketball, and sometimes the sock hops, and sometimes just being there with the guys. Yates was a beautiful place for us back then. Okay.
What about life after Yates?
I wasn't a bookworm, and I'll say this to guys I meet now. If you don't get your books early, you can't get them late, meaning it. I wasn't college material. I went up to Wiley College for about a week or 10 days. But I didn't have any money, and I was scared. I was an 18-year-old kid away from home. I came home, and I wasn't going to walk the streets. So I worked construction for a while. In fact, I worked on the TSU's building.
Okay.
Back then. But I joined the military in February 1954. And 3 years I spent in the military. I went from Texas to California, and from California to Germany, France, all over. You playing ball, football, baseball, and I met some of the greatest people in the world in the military.
Of course.
I was determined. I wasn't going to jail. Jail's not a nice place. So I got off the streets as such, and I never went back. As much as I loved Dowling Street, I didn't go back up there. I went back there for a while. I went to barber school, but I never hung out, as we say, on Dowling Street at any of the clubs because I was, busy with the family. And like I said, I worked in the postal service from 1957 until 1990. I retired in 1990, and that's what I am now, retired.
Okay.
I worked at the Herman Park Golf Course for about close to 20 years.
Okay.
I play golf. Well, I used to play golf until my body broke down. But other than that, I'm just a regular guy. I still attend church, St. John Baptist Church on Dowling, and like I said, my grandmother was on the first usher board there, so I'm an usher also.
Okay.
I've got one son, Rodney Floyd, and I've got one of my best friends whom I call my oldest son, Charles Turner. He's sitting there now.
Okay.
In fact, I don't drive anymore, and he had to drive me over here.
Okay.
See,
Let
but
me
I
just ask
still
you- I'm sorry.
live.
I
Go
don't mean
ahead.
to
I still
interrupt.
live in Third Ward.
Okay. What one piece of advice would you give a student, a young man who's currently enrolled at Yates High School? What advice would you give him?
Learn as much as you can.
Okay.
And when I say learn, even now at night, I spend the time at night reading about different subjects, about people, and learn as much as you can. Don't ever stop learning. I missed the boat, but I'll tell anybody to learn as much as you can. And as long as you're learning something, you stay out of trouble.
Okay. If there's one word that you could use to describe Third Ward, what would that word be?
It was my haven, if you can put it that way.
Yes.
Not so much heaven, but it's where I always wanted to be. When I was in the military, that's all I talked about was Third Ward, my home, and I wouldn't live any other place. No, Third Ward is just great for me. And I cry to myself sometimes when I look at Third Ward now because of the way it is.
Changes.
It has changed so much, and so many of our, can I say, black, affluent, and somewhat wealthy blacks don't really live in Third Ward that I knew.
Okay.
Of course, Third Ward stretches from Congress on the north to the north bank of the Brays Bayou on the south. And most of it from Blodgett northward, say Wheeler, back north is not Third Ward anymore. It's, what do they call these things? Condos and
Yes.
yeah, I still call them apartments. But it's not Third Ward anymore. In fact, Dowling Street is not my Dowling anymore. It's changed names, and there are no clubs, no businesses that I can relate to. But I still love my Third Ward, and I still love my Dowling Street.
Well, Mr. Floyd, we thank you so much for being able to share your experience and your Third Ward with us. We thank you for your time and thank you for being here. And we just appreciate you. We appreciate the wealth of knowledge. And that is, it's been great to hear from you.
I'm glad to have been here. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, boy. Now I can go home and go to bed. You ready, Junior?